Hello, are we already live? Are we back? Are we back, guys? Are we back? Hello, everyone. Are we back? No, 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 no. I'm just changing something. Hope you're having a great day, everyone. We crashed on our first part, so we are doing the part two of this copywriting education, copywriting tutorial. So we are just waiting for some viewers to come in, and then we will start the part two, which is basically more on an in-depth of copywriting with the expert. We'll start in a minute. Start in a minute. Okay. Again, guys, thank you so much for supporting our live stream. And right now we are on our part two in our quest in learning copywriting. Again, this is Angela, and again, thank you so much for the support. You can continue to subscribe and like and share. This is part two of Unlocking the Power of Words, how learning copywriting can transform your life. And this is going to be discussed by the expert and the one and only Mr. Luis Berger. There, hello. Very handsome.
What's up? What's up, everyone?
What's up,
Let me give you a
everyone?
few minutes. Fun fact, I just ended someone's started this call. I got prompted to end another call, and I have no idea whose call was that. So, yeah, I ended someone's call. No idea whose. What's up, everyone? What's up? What's up? I'll allow a few minutes, 1 2 minutes for everyone to join before we get started. Long time no see, by the way. I don't remember what was the last call I had here. I think it was like 3 weeks ago or something. I remember I had one that I was gonna do in Cape Town, and then we had the meeting with the DL Kings students. So I didn't have that one. So it's probably a month ago actually, the last call I had. Yeah.
It's probably
All good, everyone. All good. Just wait one more minute and then we'll get started. Oh, you guys are fast today. I already see a bunch of questions here in the Q&A tab. Hmm. Yeah, I'm back from Africa. Now back in Brazil. Real home. Cool. Let's get started. So, if this is your first time, first of all, welcome here. Second of all, if you want to get your questions answered, the way it works is that you should drop your questions in the Q&A tab So if you just hover over your Zoom screen, you're gonna see the bar at the bottom. There you should have an option that says Q&A. That's where you should drop your questions. That's where I read the questions from. The chat here, I just keep looking at it during the call to see if everything is fine, if the sound's working, if you guys have any comments on what I'm currently talking about. But I don't read the questions from the chat. I read the questions from the Q&A tab. So if you have any questions, just drop them in the Q&A tab, and then I'll go through them. Oh, hi from Uruguay. There you go. You're actually pretty close, bro. I live in the southern state of Brazil, so it's not far away from Uruguay at all. Cool, cool, cool. So let's get started. First question. Hey, Luis, I'm a freelance copywriter. I work with one company that makes me $3,000 a month. Very good, by the way. But I do more than copywriting. I do a little bit of media buying, short form content, FB ads, funnel building, manage their CRM, and more. Pretty much their CMO at this point. What advice do you have me to grow as a copywriter and make more money? So the first thing is that there are kind of like two ways to grow with copywriting or marketing in general, if you will. The first one is doing basically what you're doing. Instead of just doing copywriting, you do a little bit of everything. And that's how I grew here. I started as a media buyer, then I started doing copywriting for ads, then I started doing copywriting for VSLs, then I started taking care of tracking and client management and pretty much everything. Until I got to a point where I was pretty much the CMO already because I took care of all the marketing and then eventually got the position officially. So that's one of the ways for you to grow is do more than just copywriting and take more responsibility within a company. And then for you to go grow financially with that, what you want to do is to renegotiate a deal. And ideally, you want to renegotiate a deal in a performance based setting, as in you get paid based on how much revenue or how much profit you bring in for that company. So this way, you're not limited or capped when it comes to your income, because the more money the company makes or the more money you help that company makes, the more money you get paid in return. So that's the best type of deal to grow as not necessarily a copywriter, but as a marketer in general. And you can do pretty much the same thing with only copywriting as well. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult to get higher percentages. So usually you either go all in one, two, three companies at most, where you do a bunch of things. You're kind of like some people call it a fractional CMO, and some people call it a growth partner, if you will, where you're very, very invested in those companies. You're doing a bunch of things other than just copywriting, and you take a high percentage of the profit share, right? Other way is you're just a copywriter and then you take a lower percentage of revenue share or profit share, and then you work with more clients. Because of course, if you just do copywriting, there's always going to be a bunch of other things to do in that company, so they cannot afford you to pay as much because they still have to pay other employees that do other things. So those are the two ways to grow. And especially when you see that you have this relationship with the client that's working well, they're already paying you $3,000 a month, and you start taking on more and more and more responsibility, it gets to a point where it makes sense to have this conversation with the client. Look, really love your business, love everything you're building here. I'm already getting super involved into it. As you saw, I started just as copywriter. Now I'm taking care of this, and that, short form content, FB ads, funnel building. And I would love to get even more involved with your company. But of course, for me as a service provider, it has to make sense financially. And I'm totally down for that. I'm totally down to working 100. It can even be 100% of your time or whatever. I'm totally down to working majority of my time in your company, as long as you can find an agreement here that works for both of us, for both parties. It's beneficial for both of us and it works financially. And then you basically suggest a profit share deal. Just gotta be a little bit careful. Don't try to go for too much. See what works for them. It's gonna be different for every single company. Usually, if it's a well, I don't know how big the company is. If it's a big company doing more than, well, not a big company, but doing more than 10 million a year, it's probably going to be on the single digit percentage. If it's doing less than that, you can get double digits depending on how much responsibility you're taking. So it's basically just having that conversation. And in general, my opinion, the best spot for you to be as a copywriter or as a marketer in general to grow a lot in your career is to find people who are still early on in their online journeys, but who have a lot of potential. So for example, when I first started working with him on, he was not nearly as big as he is right now. And I believe he had like 100 and 50K subscribers on YouTube, something around that. And of course, the education company was doing way, way less than it is doing right now. So I got lucky with the timing that I joined the company because it was the perfect position for me to take a lot of responsibility. And as the responsibilities grew, so did the revenue. And of course, then I got a chance to get compensated very, very well for doing that. So ideally, that's the type of client you really want to look for, is someone who has a lot of potential. They're doing a lot of work. They're growing consistently on social media, and they're just a little bit before hitting that point of really skyrocketing, because in business and in life in general, in your careers, you're going to see that growth is not linear, growth is exponential. So it always gets to a point where it feels like things are growing fast already, but then they just skyrocket. And you want to join those companies right before they skyrocket. That's the best position to be at. So if you can find those positions, it's a very good way to start, just working at $3,000 a month, sometimes even less than that, no performance fee, do great work there, take on more responsibility, and then pitch for a performance deal with those companies. Long term, over the course of 1 to 3 years, you can grow a lot by doing that if you take the right clients. What is the best organic marketing method to generate calls? I'm thinking webinar, email blast, and appointment setting in Insta DMs. Thanks for answering. Really depends on the volume you have here. So if you're generating calls for clients, as in a call funnel, if you will, then for sure you can go for a webinar. You can go for VSLs. It's just a matter of quality versus quantity. If you go for webinars, you're going to have more quality, less quantity, because you have to register to the webinar, then attend the live webinar, then watch through the entire pitch, and then book a call. It takes more effort, right? So it's going to be more quality, but lower quantity. Now, if you go for a VSL, for example, the structure is similar, but it's right away. It's on demand. You opt in right away, you see the video, right away, you see the call to action button, right away, you can book a call. So you're going to get more calls booked, but at a lower quality. So it's just basically an amount of options. And then if you really want volume, for sure, appointment setting in Insta DMs is the one that's going to get you the most volume, but it also going to be a lot more manual work. So if you're doing that for a client, you got to make sure they have a good SDR team, or at least one good SDR who can go through all the DMs, talk to people, have conversations with them, filter all the people who are not qualified, and set the people who are qualified into calls with the sales team. So it's a little bit of a more developed structure. Again, it is more profitable, especially at the beginning, because then you can make the most out of the leads you have, and you can generate more leads more easily. But it's harder to scale, and it's a lot more manual work. So you just gotta take that into consideration. Then, of course, if you have millions and millions of people, if you try to do everything through appointment setting, you're gonna create your own bottleneck by doing that, basically. So the more volume you have, the more you want to move towards automation versus manual work. The less volume you have, the more you want to move towards manual work, because of course, manual work has higher conversion rates. It's more work, but since you have less volume, you can afford to do more work in a least amount of volume, right? So that's my suggestion there. It's just a matter of measuring where you or your client are in this curve of growth. How familiar are you with show up strategies? If you are, please share some of the most effective strategies to have your leads who booked an appointment actually show up to the call. Appreciate it. So there's a few things that come into play here. So one thing that I always like to do is, whenever you have a funnel that the next step requires you to wait time, or requires the lead to wait time, is not something that happens right away, I always like to make good use of the thank you page. That's by far the most important thing. So for example, one thing that we run a lot, it's the event funnels. So it's basically a 1 week event where you have 3 4 videos, and before that event happens, you have to register to the event, right? So let's say a month before the event is going to happen, we start advertising, and then we take people to a registration page. They register on the page, and once they register, the first thing they see is a thank you page. And usually on that thank you page, I reaffirm them on what's going to happen on the event, what they're going to learn, why it is important that they show up live. It's always important for you to give a reason on something they are going to lose if they do not show up live. You got to give them a reason, a tangible reason as to why they got to show up live. That's the most important thing. And then I already take them into the next step. So usually what I do, for example, is I tell them, so the next step right now is for you to go into your email and open this email with this headline that I just sent you, because there's a very specific or important information that I'm sending you through the email, and you got to read it now. Because then you're already initiating another point of contact with them. It can either be WhatsApp messages or SMS, because then you have a little bit of a back and forth. If you have a setter, for example, or if you have a closer, it's very easy for them to get in contact with those people. And then you're already hooking them in and getting them committed to the call right away. So, for example, going back to the point of automation versus doing manual work, if you're doing a call funnel, you can have your closers doing that. You can have your closers reaching out to them. And then on that thank you page video, just tell them, by the way, someone from my team is going to reach out to you via WhatsApp, via SMS, whatever it is. And then make sure to get back to them because they have some important questions they need to ask you before you get to the call. And if they get into the conversation at the stage where they're going back and forth with the closer, the likelihood of them actually showing up to the call that they have booked is very, very high. We have measured the difference between people who get into conversation with the closer versus the people who do not get. It's pretty much guaranteed that if they get into a conversation with the closer, they're going to show up to the call. So you just want to get them committed. And then going back to the point of automation, if you don't have closers, if you're doing more in a volume type of funnel, kind of like the event funnel that we have, then you do through email, for example. You send them an email and just let them know that there's something important in email. You need to read that email. And then on the email, again, you reiterate why this event is important, yada, yada, yada. And you let them know that you're going to be sending them an email every single day up until the day of the event, or twice a week, whatever it is, whatever frequency you're sending them, just so they keep get into the habit of opening your emails, because then once the video goes live, you're going to send them an email letting them know that the video is going live. So if they open the email that the video is going live, they're most likely going to show up live to the event. We usually get around 18% show up rate from leads to, is that correct? 18%. Yeah, 18% show up rate from leads to live viewers on events. So let's say we get let me do an easy math here. Let's say we get 100,000 leads. We're going to get around 18,000 people showing up live to the event. Remember, that's not a webinar. It's a 1 week event. People know they can watch it later. It's not something that's only going to be there once it's live. If you do a webinar that's only live there and they have to show up live, otherwise they're going to lose access to that content, then the show up rate is going to be way, way higher. It can be upwards of like 60%. Right. But in this type of event that we run, that there is a replay, people know the video is going to be on YouTube, we usually get around 18% of people showing up live. Now, if you do for a call funnel, the show up rate, usually we aim to be around 75%, but that's not from booked calls to live calls. We call it confirm calls to live calls, because there's a lot of people who book a call and then we cancel those calls because they're not qualified based on their responses. Then from the calls that we do not disqualify, that we do not take off the calendar, we usually get around 75%. And then again, we always have, whenever we book a call, we have on the thank you page a video from both Iman going over the program, going over why the call is important, and also a video from the closer. So the sales rep that's taking that call, there's a video from him specifically. We have an automation that if they book a call that gets attributed to this rep, they get a video from this rep on the thank you page. And then they say, okay, I'm this rep. I'm going to be talking to you. Here's what we're going to cover in the call. Here's why it's important for you to show up to the call. By the way, if you don't show up to the call, you're not going to get a chance to show up to any other calls. You only have one call. If you try to, you can always rebook and cancel, etc. But if you just don't show up and don't let me know, we're not going to take another call with you. So they have this fear of missing out. You always have to play on that. There always have to be scarcity and urgency on those type of live type of events. So we add that there. Then we also have a button for them to go to WhatsApp message with the closer, because usually right away the closer already sends a message. If not, they can send the message themselves and then it goes into the WhatsApp for the closer. But we already push for the conversation to happen before the call takes place. To have this entire structure, the likelihood of the call, the people showing up to the call is very, very high. And again, you should aim to 70 to 75% conversion rate from people who are live calls. Again, calls that are confirmed in your calendar, that it did not scrub off the calendar, to people actually showing up to the calls. And then another very minor thing, but also important, every single one of the scheduling softwares like Calendly, schedule once. I don't know many others, but I know there's a bunch out there. They have the confirmation SMS and confirmation messages. So just make sure that's set up, because then it's gonna automatically send a message. I think it's like one day before, then 1 hour before, 15 minutes before, and 5 minutes before the call. It's gonna send them a message letting them know that the call is about to take place. So that's very important as well. With that, all of that implemented, your show up rates should be pretty good. And then again, remember that whenever you have show up rates or any type of next step that people must take in the following step of the funnel, it always gonna be the amount of people who actually take that step is always gonna be related to how much you push and how much you sell the idea of going through the next step on the step before. So if I have a VSL, I really have to sell the idea that they need to show up to the call. The more I sell that idea on the VSL itself, the more people are actually gonna show up live. So it's always very important to reiterate the reason, give people a reason as to why they must show up live, or if they don't, they're gonna miss out on something. So always do that before even going into the funnel of booking a call. The the it's it's about the intent that you create before they even get into the funnel. It's the most important part, is the framing that you have in there. Okay, what's up, Luis? Could you give please some feedback on the website copy for my email marketing agency? Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Let me share my screen here. Let me just see. There's nothing that I shouldn't share. Okay, should be good to go. Share screen, desktop. There we go. So headline, hero section. Headline: we help e-commerce brands win in the attention economy through behavior-driven email marketing. Subtext: ditch the one-size-fits-all email blast. Access the blueprint to attract and acquire more loyal customers in a world full of options, and retain strong margins doing so. CTA: learn how we do it. Small fear including sentence below CTA, or risk drowning in the noise. Without half the discounts, without losing goodwill, no extra work required. That's pretty solid. And I can see that this is kind of like based on the one that we have for digital launchpad, that we also have those little add-ons on the page. Then hook first scroll, mastery demand focus. So we don't offer any other services except email marketing for e-commerce brand. Our secret: would spin emails into personal conversations, strengthening your brand's bond with every reader. This means every message helps get more people to buy your stuff, get them to buy more of them, and yes, get them to buy for more money. CTA: unlock your email advantage. I don't like this CTA. What do we have first? Learn how we do it. I would just say something along the lines of what you're saying here. So uh skyrocket your email sales, sell more through email, whatever it is. I don't like unlock your email advantage. You could use like unlock your email. Growth is not a strong enough word here. Yeah, I don't like that. I would just change for something else, as I said. Seal the deal from the inbox. Behind every successful ad campaign, there's a story wanting to unfold through email. We turn those initial clicks into lasting relationships that amplified your funnel's return. That's very good. Then benefit one, headline: master customer engagement and retention. It all starts with trust. Personalized emails keep subscribers engaged and returning. Reduce customer acquisition costs. Next, we streamline lead nurturing, meaningful touch points, convert leads more efficiently without overfitting the ad giants. That's very good, overfitting the ad giants. Boost customer lifetime value. As the relationship deepens, so does their CLV. What is CLV? Customer lifetime value. I usually go for LTV, which is lifetime value, and that's usually the word we use here and pretty much everywhere. So just consider changing this. I have never heard of it, to be honest. So if I haven't heard, I believe most people haven't heard either. Leverage tailored engagement, strategic upselling, and loyalty building campaigns. Secure more conversions today. That's good. For range email marketing for e-commerce business, Klaviyo management, unlock powerful email automation side of Klaviyo, made seamless and purposeful for you. Headline copywriting: we create demand through compelling words that spark desire, and drive action tailored to your brand's voice. Maybe I'll just add something here instead of just copywriting. I would do conversion rate driven copywriting, something like that, just to make it sound a little bit more sophisticated. Graphic design or text, our design team here are experts in creating high converting email designs that make your brand stands out from the noise. Again, I would change from graphic design, and I would have something along the lines of um, world class aesthetics or something like that. That just makes it sound fancier. Content strategy, we strategically map your email's journey to resonate on a deeper level and keep your subscribers engaged. That's good. Optimization reporting, we marry analytics with creativity to test and optimize your emails for peak performance, ensuring no revenue gets left on the table. Let's get started. Boom, that's good. Our process and scope of work, the RISE blueprint, research, implement, scale, evaluate. That's, bro, it's pretty good. Calendly booking page. Uh, Let me think. So I believe what's going to happen here is every single time people click on the call to action button, it's going to scroll automatically to this section here. If that's the case, that's good. I just don't like having the booking page as the last section. I usually like to have it right after the main like call to action part of the page. Then I have the booking page. Then I have something else like one or two more sections just for some reassurance. So I know you have the FAQ here, but I don't even consider that another section because that's always by the bottom of the page. So I'll probably have something else there. Like maybe I would have the Calendly here in between those two. I like this. I would like to have this before the call to action because it shows that you guys really know what you're doing, that you have kind of this productized type of service. So it gives you the impression that it works. So maybe I'll just take this one, what we offer, and put it after the call to action. I always like to have things after the call to action, whatever that is for a sales page or for a sales video. I never like to end in the first call to action. Like you can end in a call to action, but don't end in the first call to action. Always like to reiterate a little bit more because there's always people who need a little bit more assurance when they get to the call to action at first. So they need to be pitched a few times in order for them to take action. So if you only have one call to action, or if you're end your page in a call to action, you're kind of like losing those people because they cannot scroll further. And after that, you don't really have our CTA button that scrolls back to the booking page. So that's what I would change in terms of structure. In terms of copy, looks pretty good to me. The copy is pretty well developed. I'll keep pretty much everything the same, just the small tweaks that I mentioned in terms of the CTA buttons. But other than that, that's what I would change. So yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Should work pretty well. Cool. Hey, Luis, you probably remember my previous question about servicing B2B software as a service startups and offering them a couple of different services. Yes, I remember that. Regarding this ads aspect, here's a Loom outreach format I'm sending. What else could be good hook points to get them to book a meeting? I haven't done any ads to show yet. Wow, let's watch a Loom. Haven't done that in a good while, but let's do that in this call. 1 minute and 34 seconds. That's good. So let me see here. Am I sharing my screen? No, I'm not. 1 second. Let me share this here and let me make sure I share it with sound and optimize for video clip. Let's take a look here.
Hola Andres, espero que estás bien. Aquí estoy Mark, and I just wanted to quickly congratulate you on what you're doing with Mengle. So the funding you received looks promising. I looked at your website as well, and you have some interesting names as clients, but I would assume that you didn't have time or resources yet to set up a proper sales team and like an outbound cold email infrastructure. So I took the liberty to analyze your domain a little bit, and it looks like it could be improved. And bear in mind, if you can get these numbers higher, say to an 8, for example, and I could help you do that, your email deliverability would be increased significantly. But also if you leave it like this, it could be damaged severely. And I also looked at the ads library for LinkedIn and Facebook, and obviously you're not running any ads yet, which makes sense, of course. And at this point, it's time for me to say what I do. So I help B2B SaaS startups, the likes of Mengle, to generate more pipeline leads, demos, and just get more qualified business in front of you to close. And I've done so already for Kaplana, a Swiss AI SaaS startup, for which I completely created an outbound cold email infrastructure from scratch, which helped generate hundreds of new enterprise level leads, which turned into paying customers. So my question, Anders, is the following. If we could get this number higher, I could do it for you for free. Do you think it would be worth 20 minutes of your time for a chat and see if we're a good fit to the business together? Look forward to your answer and have a good one. Bye.
This is actually very, very good. And the fact that you pitched it for free, it's It's pretty solid. I would say that should work very well. The only thing you always have to be careful here when going over their current structure is whenever you're criticizing something, or not even criticizing, just giving feedback on something that could be improved, you always have to be careful with the way you frame that. Like saying that maybe you didn't have time to work on that is already good, but even then you still got to be careful, because you should never give feedback and put the blame into the customer as to why that's not ideal. You should always try to blame it on something else, an external factor. Again, you're kind of doing that by putting on the time thing, but it's still a little bit on their shoulders when you do that. I would say something like, and the thing is that majority of the mail domain companies, they make it very hard for you to actually put this up, so it's majority of the people don't even know that you can actually do that. So you're kind of like putting the blame on the mail company, the domain company, whatever it is. I'll just try to always put the blame on external people and take the blame out of the customer and make them feel like, fuck, there wouldn't be any other way that you could know about this, so it's not your fault at all. Because if they can feel like, oh fuck, yeah, it's true. Like the mail companies, they do feel like they do make it super hard to understand this concepts and improve on that. And I totally understand that. So it's not my fault. And I would love to have someone helping me with that. But if you put the blame on them, it's kind of like, but I didn't have to. They're gonna create an excuse as to why they didn't do that. They're like, oh, I didn't have time, or I'm going to do that next, or I'm working on that right now. Whatever it is, they're gonna find an excuse as to why they haven't done that, and then it's gonna get into the way of you getting a deal with them. So you always want to put the blame on something external to them. Again, the time thing is kind of doing that, but in my opinion, you can get it even further by blaming an external institution, if you will, as to why that's the case. And again, if you can have something like that where you say, oh, it's for free, and ideally, if you can even say that it doesn't require any extra work on their end, and we can improve this and it's going to improve your results, that's like the ideal scenario. And I really like the fact that's only 1 minute and a half. It's ideal because, again, if you just send a cold loom to someone, it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even worse. People are not gonna watch it. But 1 minute and a half, people open that, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna watch it. Like, it's literally just what happened with me. I clicked the Loom link before I read the question, because if it was a 5 minute Loom link, I wouldn't watch it to show it here. But it was 1 minute and a half. So I was like, yeah, let me watch it and let me break down with everyone. So that's actually pretty solid. The only other thing, let me see here. Maybe on your setup, I don't know. It just feels on your setup that there's a lot of things going on. I just like to have it my setup very simple, because in my opinion, it makes you look a little bit more professional. So just on your setup and the way you're kind of standing as well, like it feels like you're kind of like this laying down, so it gives this a little bit of air of arrogance. And you got to be mindful of those things when you're reaching out to people cold, because they're going to judge you on that. Maybe you're not arrogant at all, maybe you just did like 30 different ones of those and you're just a little bit tired, so you're just kind of like leaning back. But it gives this vibe that you think you're superior if you're talking to someone who you never met. If I'm talking to someone like I have met before, talk to them every day, it's totally fine. But if I'm talking to someone like this, like I'm kind of disinterested because I'm not leaning forward, I'm leaning back. So the body language, it gives away that I'm kind of disinterested. I'm kind of viewing myself in a superior position to you. Those are the little details that make people go, oh, I like this guy, versus, oh, I think this guy's an asshole. So those small things that would change. So for example, whenever you're doing that, I'll just be more like this, because it feels like you're more invested into the conversation, if you will. It's kind of like when you're talking to someone. If you're kind of like this and you're leaning forward, it means that you're interested. It means that you're paying attention. If you're kind of like this, it means that you're more relaxed and paying, not necessarily not pay attention, but paying a little bit less attention. And again, those small things, they make a difference, especially when reaching out cold to people. So I would just pay attention to that. Um, I think Paul, on his six-figure sales rep course, if you go, guys should all have access to that. There's one specific module that he goes over. It's called the modern day suit. He goes over the setup that helps a lot already on how to create a good professional setup, even on a budget, on how to make it just look professional, look well put together. And then I think he also has one on body language in general, how to present yourself on calls. And that is very, very important, both for it's kind of like when you're talking to someone, if you're kind of like this and you're leaning forward, it means that you're interested, it means that you're paying attention. If you're kind of like this, it means that you're more relaxed and paying, not necessarily not pay attention, but paying a little bit less attention. And again, those small things, they make a difference, especially when reaching out cold to people. So I would just pay attention to that. Um, I think Paul on his six-figure sales rep course, if you go, you guys should all have access to that. There's one specific module that he goes over. It's called the modern day suit. He goes over the setup that helps a lot already on how to create a good professional setup, even on a budget, on how to make it just look professional, look well put together. And then I think he also has one on body language in general, how to present yourself on calls. And that is very, very important, both for those cold outreach looms and also for sales calls. So just take a look into that. But other than that, the structure of them was very solid, bro. You're doing very well. Hey, bro, how would you structure an ad for a kitchen and a bathroom remodeling business? What angle would you take in the copy and creative? First of all, I would research. I'll probably just come here, ad library, all ads, and I'll go kitchen renovation. And then I'll just take a look at all the ads that I see in here. And then I'll take a look at the funnels and I'll just do like the thing that I'm searching for here when I'm looking at this is what are the models, the formats of ads that show up the most often. So for example, I see a lot of before and after here. And for example, this page, apparently they're doing pretty well. They have quite a few ads. So I'm also going to go on their page. Okay, they have 22. It's quite a few for a local business. So they're probably doing not extremely well, but somewhat well. So this is a format that you can implement already, right? So you just start taking a look at what other people are doing, and from that you start taking notes. So we'd spend quite a lot of time doing this, taking a look at all these ads. Here you can see an hour before and after. Like this one's a little bit different. Fuck, I hate the auto scroll thing here. And then I'll just take a look at all of this, and I would see the one that repeats itself the most often, the format that repeats itself the most often, and then I'll just try to not copy, model it, and have your ad as similar as possible to that one, because that already works, and people already spend money buying data, buying ads, right? What you're doing when you're buying ads, you're essentially buying data. So people already spend money buying data, figuring out what works and what doesn't. So you can actually hijack their ad spend and learn from their own mistakes and from their own ad spend by doing that. If you take a look at affiliates are like the most sophisticated type of marketers, and all they do is like funnel hack other affiliates. There's like tools that hide your ads from other affiliates and shit like that, just so other people don't funnel hack you. So in local businesses and like lead generation services like that, it's usually not that common to do that. So people are not aware of that. So take that to your advantage. See what other people are doing and just use that. Study all these ads and see, like, for example, okay, does it work to have text on the ad versus only having a picture? Does it work to have a before and after versus having just one picture? And just see what works for them. And then see, okay, these guys, they're apparently sending either to a Facebook form. I believe that's actually not a Facebook form. I believe that's a chat bot. See where they're sending the ads to. You're sending to a landing page. This one is sending to a landing page. Okay, what the landing page looks like. What's the copy like on the landing page? What they have. Okay, they have a map. They have the areas they work on. They have the testimonials here and everything. So just try to look at the structure, and whenever you do that, also look on mobile. Take a look at the structure they have in here, and just again model everything that's working for the people who have a lot of ads running. That's literally what I would do. And then try to figure out who is like the go-to guys that are doing super, super well in this niche, and model what they're doing. That's all you need to do. So whenever I'm going to new niche like that, I never try to like guess or be very creative with my copy. You can be very creative once you have a lot of things working and then can try something new. But before that, I want to see what's already out there, what's already working, and then just model what's already working, get proof of concept, make it work for me. And once it works for me, then I can start getting creative. Then I can start developing a competitive edge to position myself differently from my competitors. But before that, I want to actually position myself exactly as my competitors to get the same results you're getting. And then after that, I start to get more complex, right? But first of all, just look at what they're doing and model it because it works. They're doing, if they're spending a bunch of money, they have a bunch of ads running with that, it works. They're not just throwing money down the drain. If it's there, if it's running for a while, it means it has return on ad spend. So yeah, just use that to your advantage. Yeah, by the way, they just sent here in the chat about the recommendations of the modules that I mentioned for six-figure sales rep. One is on phase one, the sales ecosystem. So I believe that's the one where he talks about how to position yourself in the calls. And the other one is the modern day suit. It's the sixth episode. Hey Luis, I want to build a 4-day cash machine. Oh, that I love that. It's been a while since the last time I heard that 4-day cash machine. That's from bro. I have the recordings from that course. I think it's like back from 2016 or 15 or something like that, maybe even before that. That's from a long time ago. Yeah, if you really think about it, it's from 2014. That's 10 years ago. So yeah, good old times. Hey, Luis, I want to build a 4-day cash machine for my client. However, I don't want the main selling point to be surrounded around a VSL because my client doesn't have a big YouTube channel. Hence, it probably wouldn't do so well. What are some other alternatives to VSLs that are most suited for smaller clients' businesses? Bro, I wouldn't say there is a correlation between having a VSL and having a big YouTube following. Majority of the very, very big VSLs that get a lot of traction, they're just starting from scratch and they run a lot of paid ads to the VSL. And it's not something that the client already had a very, very big following. It's just all cold traffic going to VSL. So if the VSL is well written, it doesn't matter if you don't have a following. It's a hack. A VSL, it's a hack to get a following in the first place. If you have a good VSL, you can just send unlimited amounts of traffic to it and you will create that following for you while also making it profitable. So I would still consider having a VSL. And in my opinion, the VSL is the best way to convert any type of traffic, whether that is hot traffic or cold traffic, into paying customers while also creating a following. So I would consider that. But if the client doesn't have the scope to do that, let's say he's not good on camera, he doesn't want to record, he doesn't have the time to record, and he needs to launch fast, then I would just use a sales letter instead. I don't know what type of client you're talking about here, but I believe it's some sort of info product or anything training related because I mentioned the YouTube channel and everything. So I would either do a sales letter, a written sales letter, or a VSL. If you don't want to do the VSL, do a written sales letter, which is pretty much a sales. It's a VSL just in a sales format, just in a text format. Um, with that being said, majority of the people they don't read too much anymore. So it used to work very well to have long sales letters. Still works, but not nearly as well as it used to work like 5, 10 years ago. So you got to consider that. Well, 10 years ago is like forever in internet time. So even like 3 years ago, it doesn't work as well, especially if you have a higher ticket course. It's very hard to sell a higher ticket course or any type of higher ticket product or service or program if you don't have videos. So always try to have videos. So that's the idea there. Now, as a copywriter, how should you charge a client only for email marketing services? Hourly, per email, monthly, and how much minimum? I'll charge monthly. We started working. Well, can actually say that because we have an NDA, so I'm not gonna say it. But usually for email marketing, w- the way majority of the big agencies do it, the successful agencies, let's call not the big agencies, they just do it monthly. So it's a monthly retainer with a little bit of a performance fee. It's usually like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 retainer, whatever it is, with a performance fee. Usually ranges around 3,000 for majority of the clients, and then a performance fee on top of that. And then that really depends on your margins and what type of business you have. But it's way easier to do that because it is from the best interest of the client to send not as many emails as possible, but as many emails as you need to sell more without hurting your list. So for some businesses, that could be 2 emails a week. For some businesses, that could be 1 email a day. For some businesses, that could be 1 email a week, whatever it is, right? So it doesn't really make sense for you to charge based on email, especially if you have a performance incentive. And you remember, you always want to have performance incentive because that's how you make more money. So if you have a performance incentive and you know that if you send 3 mails a week, you're gonna get paid more, you're gonna make more money for the client and for yourself as well than sending 1 email a week. It doesn't make sense to charge hourly or charge per email because then the client needs to pay you more, and it's their the best interest to send more emails in a week than less emails. So it's like the incentives are not aligned in that situation. That's why I don't like it to charge per hour or per email or per the amount of work you put in. I like to charge based on results. So either do a flat retainer fee monthly, or you charge both a retainer fee and a performance, or just performance, whatever you prefer. But in those three cases, only retainer, only performance, or retainer plus performance, the incentives they're aligned. I feel like when you charge hourly or per email, the incentives are not necessarily aligned, because the opposite could be true as well. And that's from the client's perspective. Maybe it makes more sense for me to send 3 mails a week than 6 emails a week, because that way I'm going to sell pretty much the same, but I'm not going to burn my list, and my click-through rates and my open rates are going to stay up for a longer period of time. So long term, I'm going to make more money by sending 3 mails versus 6 emails. Just hypothetical scenario, not saying that's the case every single time, but hypothetical scenario. And then you could go there as an agency if you're getting paid per email and say, I think we should send 6 emails a week. And then the client could see that as a conflict of interest, because of course maybe you're just pushing to send more emails because you get paid more, because you're going to be writing more emails and you get paid for the emails, for the amount of emails you write. So you have an incentive to push them to send more emails, right? So the incentives are not really aligned here. Is the same thing when you are a media buyer or a media buying agency and you are incentivized based on the ad spend. I hate that. I much rather have incentives based on revenue or profit, especially profit, because then the incentives are really aligned there. But if you do an ad spend, for example, there's a lot of situations where it's better to scale down a bit, recover the return on ad spend, increase the return on ad spend, and then scale back. But a lot of people wouldn't do that if they had a performance incentive based on the ad spend of the client, because of course if they have to scale back, it means they get paid less, right? And if they get paid less, it's not from their best incentive to just tell the client to invest less, although sometimes that's the best move for you to do, is to invest less, optimize a little bit, recover your return on ad spend, and then spend more, right? But if you're incentivized on how much the client spends, you're not going to want your clients spending less. Same thing with email. If you're incentivized on the amount of emails you send, you're not going to want your clients sending less emails, even though long term or even short term, that could be better. So I don't like any type of incentive that's work related. I like incentives that are result related. And again, I always like profit driven performance fees versus revenue driven, because it's kind of like the same conflict of interest. Sometimes increasing the revenue is not a good idea if the profit is not increasing accordingly, depending on the margins, because you can increase your revenue a lot while decreasing your profit margin. So at the end of the day, you're like selling more is always more headache. And if you're selling more for less profit margins, then at the end of the day, it's the same amount of profit in total. You're getting more headache for the same amount of profit, which doesn't make sense. So that's why final answer is always charge for performance, whether that is a performance fee or just a monthly retainer. I choose to work with e-commerce business. What shall I do first? Well, watch the course, watch Pen to Profit, and you're gonna know what's the approach you should take. But essentially, you should study the niche, really get into research, and then once you really understand the niche, you just start outreaching. That's It's as simple as that, to be honest. Then outreach, get in the meeting, sign the client, start working with them, and get one client and get them the best result you could ever get, as if it was your own business. That's the recipe for success with copywriting. And then once you have those first few clients that you get very, very good results, everything just starts happening for you clients and wins starts adding up on top of each other. What experience do you have with SEO writing specifically? How do you measure the success of your SEO content? Measuring success for SEO content, in my opinion, is based again on results, and the results you're trying to get there is traffic. SEO, all you want to get is traffic. You don't necessarily want to get conversions, although that's a byproduct that grows with SEO, but SEO is traffic. So you want to either get more traffic to the pages or rank better in one specific search term. So those are the two results you're looking for with SEO related services. If we send our new client and they already have an existing email list, how much time should we build the relationship with the clients using your techniques, or should we go straight away to building one of the sales campaigns you talked about in the course? Well, it really depends on what they do. So for example, if you take a client that is used to promoting every single day. All they do is promote, 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 and they don't have too much of a relationship building series, then I will create a sequence for relationship building. Now, on the other hand, if you have a client that sends email every week, have been sending email consistently, and haven't sold in 2-3 months, then the first thing you want to do is go into a sales campaign. So you just want to make sure you have a balance, right? That's the main thing. You can always sell, and it's always from your best interest to sell as soon as possible when you get a client, just to show the client quick results, because then that's gonna be good for your relationship with the client. So start in the right foot with the relationship. But again, you don't want to hurt your long-term performance by doing that. So if the client has promoted a lot lately, it might make sense for you to go a little bit easy at first, don't promote, have this conversation with the client, let them know that we have been promoting a lot lately, so it's better for us to take the pedal off the gas for a little bit for 1 or 2 weeks, just create a lot of goodwill in the list, and then we can promote again before we go all in into promotion. Because otherwise, we're gonna burn this list, and then my services might work for the first month, for the second month, but then they could stop working because we have burned the list completely by over promoting. And I don't want that. I don't want to work. I want to work with you for a long time. So I want this to work over the long term, not only on the first month or 2 months that we're working together. So that's the approach I would take. Again, it's always important that you take an audit of whatever the client was doing before, and then based on that audit, you create a roadmap on how we should move forward with that account. So in one of the episodes of Pen to Profit, you talked about weekly meals, but I didn't manage to catch more information about them. How should they look like? What should I write in them about? So basically, the weekly meals is 70% of the emails you're gonna send, potentially even 80%, is what you do every single week. So think about it as a newsletter where you're always giving value, you're telling stories, you're answering questions. There's a lot of ways to approach that. One of my favorite ways to do that, if you're not very good at creating angles yet, is basically to just, if the client we're working with has an Instagram, for example, you go on Instagram and you open a question box, and then you're gonna get a bunch of questions regarding their product, their service, whatever they do, right? Oh, if they teach something, you're going to get questions about that. And then you just use those questions and you create one email for each one of those questions. So, for example, if I open a question box for Iman, questions we're going to get: what's the best way to get started making money online? What's the best business model? Is SMMA is still a viable business model? What's the best type of outreach to get more clients for my agency? How can I scale my agency from $10,000 a month to $100,000 a month? So I have all of those ideas, and I can use them as topics to weekly mails or daily mails, whatever the sequence or whatever the frequency you want to send those emails. You can use that as a hook for your email. And then on that email, you can just answer that question, go a little bit deeper into that topic, and then you have a choice here. You could either promote something there or not promote something there, and just have that as a goodwill email versus a promotion email. But there's a lot of people who actually promote every single day using that structure, and then it works very well. It works very well as long as you're good at providing values, answering questions that are actually valuable for the audience and for the reader, and also telling stories that create value for the customer, you can promote every day if you do that. And then if you don't want, you can also not promote every day, and you can just have that as goodwill content, and then you can use that to enroll people into a sales sequence, for example. So we use those emails as hooks to other sales sequences or relationship building sequences, whatever you want. But that's what you're going to be doing 70% of the time, 80% of the time as an email marketer, is just writing those weekly mails. A bit of guidance. I'm in the final year of my master in engineering. I'm currently in the agency fast track, got JT as my SSC, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance my studies and getting my agency going. Oof, masters in engineering is tough, bro. I know it. The only reason I see continue going down the engineering route would be that degree would increase my chances of being promoted to C-suite in the future, but that's years off most likely. That's going a long way off, and I want to break the magical 10K per month ASAP. Any tips on how I should balance the studies and the agency work? I have a vague memory of you saying they were studying engineering for a while before discovering copywriting. Exactly, I was. Actually, I was studying engineering not before discovering copywriting, during not most of my career at this point, but at the beginning of my career for a long time I was still working and studying at the same time for like 2 years, I think. And it was engineering as well, engineering of automation and control. Went through 5 6 different classes of calculus for nothing, but we made it through. So what I would say is, for sure, it like, really think about it. First of all, really think about it. If you're going through your master's in engineering, if you really want to have the master degree, I'm not entirely sure that that will help your chances of being promoted to a C-suite in the future, C-suite in the future. It could. Don't get me wrong, it could, but it depends on the type of company you're looking into getting into a C-suite. For example, here at Educate, that wouldn't change anything for you, like literally anything. And any type of internet-based business that people are not really into traditional industries, I don't think that will make too much of a difference. But if you go into a more established, offline, traditional type of industry, then it makes a difference. So that's the first thing you got to consider. And then the second thing you got to consider is that you might be, I don't know how long a master's is, to be honest. I think it's like 2 years. You might be 1 year into your master's degree, and it makes sense to finish at this point because you're already halfway through, already 80% of the way through. So in that case, even if it doesn't make sense for a C-suite and you want to work in the internet business, I would still finish it just because you're already halfway through or more. Now, if you're just getting started, you might want to consider not moving forward with it. That always should be an option in your mind. Just like, not saying you should do it, but saying that it should be an option in your mind, right? Then after that, I would not drop out before getting to like at least 5K a month, at least, because you can do both at the same time for sure. Like, you have enough time. If you're not working full time with engineering, you have time to do both your masters and work with your agency. So just focus, like, while you're in university and doing all your master's degree tasks that you have or your assignments, focus on that. But every single minute of your day that you have off of that, just focus on your agency and focus on doing income producing activities. That is, not working a website, not working on your logo, not setting up your onboarding funnel, your communication structure, not writing SOPs. None of that shit matters if you don't have any clients. The only thing that matters if you don't have any clients is to do outreach. So majority of your time should be spent doing outreach. And then once you get your first client, or in parallel to that, even, you can start already looking for your first contractor. Because if you're busy with your masters, most likely when you get your first client, you were not going to be able to deliver all the service yourself. Maybe you are, but only for one client or maybe two. You're not going to be able to scale a lot with that. So as soon as you get your first client, or even you're in the process of getting your first client, I would try to secure a freelancer, a contractor already, to take care of the service delivery side of things for you, so that you can keep focusing on the income producing activities, which is outreach. Again, service delivery is not necessarily an income producing activity. You could argue that it is a income upkeep, not upkeeping, let's call it income upkeeping activity, if you will, because it keeps the income from that specific client keep coming on. But it doesn't create new income, right? So it's not income producing activity. You got to be aware of that, because if you're spending your time doing service delivery, you're not going to get paid more because of that. You need to do more outreach. If you do more outreach, then you're going to get paid more. So that's the most important income producing activity to your agency. And that's what you should focus on. So just keep that in mind. And then, yeah, just try to work as much as you can. That's going to be the solution for you. For sure, it's going to be a few nights, or quite a few nights of 6 hours, 5 hours, maybe 4 hours of sleep, but you gotta power through that and try to finish your masters as soon as possible so that you can focus full time on the agency. That's my opinion. But again, just to finish that off, it's definitely possible to do both at the same time. I wasn't doing a master's, I was just doing graduation in university for engineering, and I did both at the same time. It was quite hard during the exams week and finals week and shit like that, but other than that, it was very doable, very actually. What do you think is the best service to offer to home improvement niche? Again, you gotta go into research. If I tell you an answer here, it would be a complete guess. Why? Even though I have experience with marketing, I've never worked in the home improvement niche and I haven't researched it. So anything I say here, 100% is gonna be a guess. It's not gonna be a good advice because it's not based on facts, it's based on opinions. I don't want you to take decisions for your offer based on opinions. Well, not your opinions, at least. It could be your clients' opinions, your customers' opinions, that for sure. But you gotta research. So take those decisions based on research. That's my main point there. Research a lot, spend a lot of hours doing that research, and then once you get through that research, then you can take a decision on your offer. What are the best steps, resources you recommend to progress from a beginner to an advanced email marketer? Uh, I don't think is that much in terms of resources. As in, of course, you should read books about copywriting. You should try to go deeper into concepts. But the more I study copywriting, the more I understand that it is about the basics. And really, being a good copywriter is about really, really understanding your client's problems and how to approach those problems and create hot buttons, or figure out the hot buttons you already have and touch those hot buttons, press those hot buttons to make people take action. And that's actually very simple. Simple doesn't mean easy. That's a very big misconception people have. Simple, most of the times, is harder than complex. Doing complex things, it's easy. You can always, if you have one thing that's working, it's very easy to add five things on parallel to that and have a very complex structure, whatever that is in your outreach, in your service delivery, in your life, in your fitness. Very easy to do that and add a bunch of things in parallel. And now we have a very complex system. Doesn't mean it's good, doesn't mean it works. Now, it's very hard to have one system that accomplishes the same results at all of those five different systems you had in parallel, and it's still simple, because if it's only one thing, it's simple. If it's five things, it's complex, right? But making one thing that's simple accomplish the same thing that five different things in separate accomplish together, it's very hard to do. So just keep that in mind. You usually want to stick to the principles because they're simple and they work, but really mastering those principles, it's not, it's simple but it's not easy, right? So it's a bit of a paradox there. And the best resource I have ever gone through in terms of copywriting, it was a course for beginners, complete beginners in the internet marketing world. Like they didn't even know what was copywriting. It was actually sold as a storytelling course because everyone knows what storytelling is. And it was the best course I went through. It was from a Brazilian guy named Leandro Aguiari. If you're Brazilian, you can go into that. But it was the best course. And it was so good because you went into those very fundamental principles and you broke down things in such a simple way. And everything, when you think about like big ideas, premise, chain of beliefs, whatever it is, he managed to break that down in very, very simple concepts. And again, that's what he managed to do, and that's why it works so well, is because he managed to take all these complex concepts and different concepts and bring everything to one simple thing, and that's very hard to do. And that was one of the best courses I went through, that turned me more into a beginner, from a beginner copywriter into an advanced copywriter, and it's all about the simple concepts. So just keep that in mind. You don't need like any knowledge that you don't currently possess majority of the times to become more experienced or more advanced. You just need to go deeper into the things that you already know and into the concepts that you already understand, and just understand them into an even deeper level. I noticed that you're trying to say very important things in your text. However, you're using very simple language. Your texts have a formula, but your sentences don't have much of a formula. For example, how to do X in Y time without Z. That's why you have to constantly search for arguments. Isn't that difficult? Yes, I agree with that. The thing is, if you just stick to formulas, you're already sticking to a formula for your entire text structure, for your entire copy structure, right? Now, if you stick to formulas even for your sentences, your text is going to be very, uh, it's going to be very hard to create variations in your text. It's going to be like, it's going to be very boxed in into one specific formula, as you said, because you're using formulas. So I like to have that freedom to really think about the arguments, to really think about how I structure things, to really think about how I structure sentences, and have that freedom to word things in different ways. Of course, it's going to be more difficult because you got to think more. For sure, it is more difficult, but I believe the result you accomplish out of that is going to be much better than just using default copywriting like sentences and templates for every single sentence that you use. Because then you don't really have the creative freedom to just create things differently, right? Because you're always doing the same thing, because you're always using the same formula. So that's the thing. Like at this point, I don't even use a formula to my copy structure anymore. I just come up with it because I already understand the formulas, I already know what's behind them. So I just write a copy, and I have this creation freedom to do whatever I want. And then again, it's more difficult to do it that way for sure. But the result you get out of it, it's better. It's kind of like the best way I like to describe it. It's if you take a camera. So we have to record all of our courses. We have these red cameras. And whenever I look at it, it's just, I don't even know what button to click. I know how to record. I know the record button. But if I have to set up anything else, I don't even know what button to click, because there's so many different settings that I don't understand, that is literally impossible for me to work with a camera. Now, if I take an iPhone camera, I can just go in there and click the button to take a picture, and I know it's going to be a good picture. Funnily enough, if you don't put all the settings right on a red camera, the quality looks shitty. So you can get cinema level quality. That's literally the cameras they use in cinema, but you got to know how to set things up properly on the camera for you to get a result. While if you go on an iPhone, you don't need to understand anything. You don't need to mess with any settings. It do everything. It does everything for you. You just got to take the picture. But the final result, and the both sides are true. The final result, if you don't know what you're doing, is going to be better on the iPhone than it's going to be on the professional camera, because you don't know the settings. But if you do know the settings, if you do understand how to use them, how to be very free with the exposure, the I don't even know the name of the settings. I don't understand anything about cameras, to be honest. But if you can be free with that and set everything up the way you want it, the final quality of footage you're gonna get is not even comparable to the quality you're gonna get out of an iPhone, right? But if you're a beginner, it's gonna be harder, way
So
harder for you
before I
to use that
provided the
camera, and
top
probably the quality
five
you're gonna get out of it is
critical
worse than just the
you are
iPhone. So it's kind of like the
learning
same thing
new
here with
knowledge
copywriting.
is
If
you
you
need
if you stick to structure, you're proven to get uh, a good copy. Is gonna be a great copy for sure, but it's not going to be like a world class copy. It's not going to be cinema level copy because you're stuck to that structure. It's kind of like the same thing as being stuck to an iPhone camera. It's good, it's actually great, but you're not going to be able to record a movie with an iPhone, right? So it's kind of like the same thing. It is more difficult, but once you understand the principles, once you understand how to set things up properly, then it makes sense to use that, and it makes sense to have this freedom. So that's the idea. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I have another call now that I need to hop into. So thank you so much for everyone who joined us today. I hope to see you guys here again in 2 weeks. Hope you have answered majority of your questions. And yeah, if anything, just join next time. Send me the questions and I'll keep answering them. Cool. Hope you guys had a great time here. Thank you so much for everyone. Have a good rest of Thursday, good Friday, good weekend, and I see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one. Take care. Cheers.